It may have been 11 months, but despite popular belief, I am still on a quest to get the highest rank in every Resident Evil game without running. So far, we've done RE4 and 3 Remake with our win rates currently split, but today we take on except there's a slight problem. Resident Evil 7 doesn't have a ranking system. But what it does have is an achievement for beating the game in under 4 hours, so for today's challenge we'll be using that as our S-rank benchmark. The rules for our BDSM session will follow the same framework as our previous walking challenges. We're exclusively playing on the game's hardest difficulty. There's no cheating allowed, no glitches allowed, no DLC or special items allowed, and, most importantly, no running allowed. But whilst the principles of rules meant something here in the safety of the intro, waiting for us in Louisiana amongst the lack of personal hygiene was a story of lies, deceit, betrayal, a story of catfishing. Local bigamist and white t-shirt enjoyer Ethan Winters was a man living the dream, until a minor DIY injury at home would leave him unable to run. During his lengthy recovery, Ethan's boredom led him to online depression accelerator Tinder in the hope that he could find someone who could build IKEA furniture with him, without having to sever a limb. Whilst online dating was a war zone where the bullets are just dick pics, in amongst the debris, there was a beacon of hope. Mia. 32 years of age, 5'7", she enjoyed cooking, home renovations, weightlifting, and DIY. She was dating perfection. And some of the things that came out of her mouth, my God, absolute filth. Several weeks and thousands of messages later, and with Ethan able to walk again, the pair finally decided to meet up in person, which was around the time where Ethan regretted setting his dating radius to 2,000 miles because she lived all the way in Louisiana. But it's fine, not everyone can be perfect. And so a short 26-hour drive later, and we finally arrived outside the front gates of Mia's house. With our challenge officially beginning, after getting no answer from the main house, we waste no time beginning our slow walk through the bayou over to the guest house, where it did occur to me that Ethan must have been colorblind because the red flags on display here ranged from mildly obvious to... yeah. The prospect of being imminently trafficked by humans was quickly outweighed by the promise of a gift indoors. I don't know about you, but I'm always down for a freebie. Once inside the guest house, however, there was no sign of the gift, or Mia. Unless the gift is supposed to be this crow inside the microwave.
Bird up!
This place smelt like feet, and not the Quentin Tarantino kind. How on God's earth anyone lived like this was a mystery.
Where'd he go? Oh shit! He's on my belly, look at him! He's right there!
What are you doing, bro? Get out of my...
Oh. I suppose, on the bright side, if Mia was half as filthy as this kitchen was, then we were in for a treat. So, continuing our walk through to the living room, we unlock a suspiciously creepy secret hatch that presumably led to the pecking chamber downstairs. Whilst contemplating that Shakespearean soliloquy, we wade through the flooded levels of the basement, finding a jacuzzi and the production set for Grand Designs if it was hosted exclusively by Joseph Fritzl. Using our one-of-a-kind bolt cutters to unlock Mia's bedroom, which coincidentally were the same color as the flag here, Ethan apparently didn't care, because after all this time, we could finally...
Who are you?
What do you mean, who am I? We've been talking this whole time. You told me to meet you here.
No, I wouldn't. Did I?
I don't believe this. Mia's complete unawareness of our existence was worrying, but the more pertinent question was, if Mia wasn't the person we'd been messaging, then who had I been sending pictures of my arsehole to? Our worst fears had been realised. I'd shared my deepest, darkest secrets with a stranger on the internet. Just like that time I sent Brad Pitt 800,000 euros. This time though, I wasn't going to let these degenerates get away with this. The person responsible for this betrayal had to be here on the estate, so with Mia using her hair to feel her way around the darkness like some kind of hairy octopus, we began our search for the identity of the Tinder swindler.
What the hell's going on?
Daddy's coming. We need to go.
I love you. Walking our way through the winding halls of the basement, Mia cryptically disappears in front of us, which, you know what? I think was our cue to leave. No hard feelings, I actually don't think I need closure on any of this. We can just write this off as one big learning curve.
Leon! Don't just stand there! Help me! Help me, Leon!
Well, that's comforting. This cardigan-wearing psychopath was, as Barry would say, insane, so we'd have to match her violence with additional violence. Despite Madhouse enriching this experience with peak shithousery, our lack of speed isn't really a problem here. By simply hugging her left-hand side and sliding around her as she attacked, we completely avoid taking any damage from her as we continued with our attempts to reason with what was clearly another victim here.
You pervert!
What did you just call me? With the RE4 community in absolute scenes and me somehow managing to be called a pervert 2 videos in a row, our search for an exit loops us back to the guest house where we replace the broken fuse in the living room in the hopes that we may be able to escape via the attic.
Ethan, it's okay.
Ow. With Ethan oblivious to danger in the same way that a deer was to a road, Mia fulfills her promise, chainsawing our masturbating hand clean off. I know online dating's hard, but seriously? After quickly consulting some of the most universally accepted and medically accurate sources on the internet, I had about 10 to 15 minutes to walk my way to medical assistance before we literally died, so heading upstairs to the attic, we searched for some of that American healthcare. Close enough. With Mia jumping down to finish the last part of her fantasy, I wasn't really in the mood, but our lack of speed here finally catches up to us. To counter this, by slamming this door in her face, Mia, completely stunned by the advanced technology of a doorknob, buys us some precious time as she's forced to chainsaw through the entire door. Walking around to the adjoining room, if we're quick enough, Mia will Kool-Aid Man through the wall and then chainsaw through this door, which gives us more than enough time to try and reason with her. Preventing my hand from being reattached to the wrong part of my body, there was a wave of relief washing over me. At least it couldn't get any weirder than this.
Welcome to the family, son.
Oh, great. As we're dragged up to the main house by Mia's dad, Jack, we witness firsthand the lengths Americans will go to avoid calling an ambulance. With Mia's family inviting us to dinner in what was apparently a rhetorical question, I made peace with the fact that I would be having diarrhea for the next week and a half, but really, how much worse could this possibly get? Lucas, could you pass the salt, please? Getting to know the parents of my non-existent girlfriend was as uncomfortable as you can imagine, but fighting through the awkwardness, we had managed to gather all of the Tinder swindler suspects around one table. Looking at the lineup, could it be unqualified dentist and happily married man, Jack Baker, or maybe aspiring restaurant owner and two-legged cougar, Marguerite Baker? Or perhaps it was dinner enthusiast and knower of the rules, Lucas Baker.
Dinner! Sweet and sour style.
There was also four-wheel drive grandma, but I think we can rule her out.
This food is giving me diarrhea.
Someone at this table was guilty. So when Lucas left to answer the phone and Jack was arguing with Marguerite, we began our search for answers.
Hey, where are you going?
Shut up.
I need my pudding, you little twink.
Exploring the house, we'd not even taken 5 steps into the corridor before Jack had found us. Like Nemesis on Inferno, Madhouse makes everyone so fast, Jack was forcibly changing my FOV by 90 degrees before I could tell the admin he was doing it sideways. So instead of taking a more aggressive, time-saving approach, we'd need to invoke Solid Snake Protocol if we wanted to avoid being shoveled to death. Waiting in the dining room for Jack to come back, we move out through the double doors and up the hall, avoiding his line of sight to collect the hatch key from this table before returning to the pantry. Oh, fucking Christ! With my Apple Watch indicating that I may be having a stroke, we slam the pantry door shut and throw the hatch open, crawling under the house and into the laundry room. Thank God there was a phone in here. Using the one emergency number I knew, we could use it to help resolve this extremely difficult situation.
Thank you for choosing Dorman's Pizza. My name is Joe. Can I help?
Hello, mate. Do you deliver at all?
We do deliver, sir.
Awesome. Can I get a large liver pizza, please? With a knock at the window, we're disappointed to see that it wasn't our pizza. It's just a police officer.
Deputy.
Okay then, deputy police officer. Meeting up in the garage, the deputy was following standard police protocol by attempting to immediately shoot the victim, but with Jack intervening and saving our life, we can... Jack, that's enough. He's dead. Jack, He's dead. Jack! Watching a literal hate crime unfold right in front of our eyes, we couldn't wait around. Our opening move here in the garage was critical. Once Jack had finished assaulting the deputy police officer, he'd quickly turn his attention to us, and seeing as we wouldn't be able to outrun him, we'd need to prioritize getting into the car as soon as possible by grabbing this lockpick and opening this box to get the keys. With Jack exploding through this shelving unit, we get just enough time to walk around the car, collect the keys from the box, and jump into the driver's seat, which is where one of two scenarios will happen. Either we can start the car and drive around this garage in the same way I drive around my local supermarket car park, or Jack will grab me by the throat after I call him a bus wanker and take over driving privileges. Kind of like a mouldy Dominic Toretto. The great thing is that either scenario works for us. Being yanked out of the car required a little bit more effort as we have to give Jack a hair transplant to force him to crash, but both were possible without running. At least this option doesn't end with my priceless 1970 Dodge Challenger being absolutely total. With Jack refusing to share insurance information, or actually any information that would help our investigation, he instead insisted on showing us something wonderful. Hey, whoa! Can we even show this? Like, legally? Escaping the garage with medical and car insurance premiums on the rise, we gain access to the house's main hall, where our objective now switches to collecting 3 dogs' heads that would unlock the back door of the house and give us access to the garden.
Fuck you.
2 of the dogs' heads are located on the west side of the house and 1 in the basement, but in RE7 there is a particular order that things needed to be done in to avoid certain unwanted consequences. Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. Heading over to the west side of the house first meant that we'd have to deal with Louisiana nemesis hunting us down the entire time, but luckily there is a second option. By violently rotating vases at the speed of light and opening drawers, we can find precious antique coins hidden throughout the game that can be spent to unlock bonus items, and one of those at the start of Madhouse is the Scorpion Key. At a cost of just 3 antique coins, we can avoid having to go through the convoluted path to access the East Wing, instead immediately unlocking this door to ditch Jack and get ourselves down into the basement. Despite losing Jack, we now gain an army of residential gimps who posed a potential issue for someone unable to run. But luckily, we can counter the molded in the same way I counter the BBC when they come round trying to check my TV license. Molded don't like being ignored, so by putting either a closed door or enough distance between us, they will just completely vanish, which would be a useful tactic as we navigated the rest of the game at a mild walking pace. Arriving down in the basement by solving the incinerator puzzle without taking the dissection key, we prevent 2 molded from spawning in and harassing us as we collect items in the storage room, including the enhanced handgun rounds found inside this Zelda chest. Now, with the dissection key in hand, we shut the door on the molded and wait for them to get a life before collecting resources and items in the morgue, enjoying but not really understanding the modern art on display here, and finding the dog emblem that we needed. For God's sake.
I'm gonna get you.
Despite being built like the kind of gentleman you'd find fighting the fruit machine inside your local Ladbrokes, Jack was a pushover. As soon as we get up, kicking this hanging body stuns Jack temporarily, allowing us to empty 4 enhanced handgun rounds into him and 5 more into his massive exposed head vagina. After Jack peels open the fence to grab his industrial-sized pair of scissors, and after we remember to have a spare inventory slot for the chainsaw, oh my god, all we had to do was knife Jack and duck below his attacks before chainsawing his weak area when it was exposed, and that was it. There's nothing else. With his Dormammu loop finally broken, Jack was old school. He still refuses to answer any of our questions on what was going on here, choosing instead to pass away peacefully. Jesus H. Christ. With him now exploded off the list, that meant we'd need to look towards suspect number 2 for a new lead.
Go tell on Brody. This song is a banger.
With Jack now living as a reverse paraplegic, as mentioned, the West Wing was completely empty, meaning we can just stroll upstairs to the rec room, collect the shotgun, spin more items at speeds that could tear a hole in space-time, and collect the 2 remaining dog emblems. One question, however, that continued to remain unanswered was that with no ramps, no stair lifts, and no accessibility modifications in the bathroom, how the fuck was text-to-speech Granny getting around this house? Are you okay?
I've shit myself.
With the back door now open, we could taste the fresh air of the baker's overflowing septic tank, and whilst it was peaceful, we had no time to rest. Whee! With the Doomslayer shotgun repaired and a DIY grenade launcher collected from the trailer that looked like it was made out of Lego, as we were examining some key items, an emergency broadcast came in over the TV.
Good evening, and some breaking news just in. Ashley Graham, daughter of President Barack Obama, has gone missing. Last seen arriving in Louisiana. Ashley was doing charitable stuff at a...
Oh my fuck. Walking over the bridge to the old house, we get a guard of honor from the Skibbity Toilet Ohio Riz Brainrot kids as we begin our search for Marguerite in her crack den. You'd think after the main house we'd seen it all, but this place would tantalize the senses in ways we couldn't have ever imagined. With the grenade launcher helping with some minor pest control, we loop around the house to fill up our pockets with assorted trash, transferring it all to this backpack before walking through this fireplace door, pushing the boundaries of what was architecturally acceptable even for a Resident Evil game.
Ethan?
Anyways, with Marguerite located, she uses her powers of ventriloquism to give us a 100% debuff against small spiders and flies as she patrolled the hallways looking for ways to put meat back on the menu. With more hyper-aggressive pest control completed, we practically step on Marguerite as we sneak around her to open the spider door and head underneath the house in search of the crank. Now, with both sides of the house connected, we raise the bridge to the outhouse to find the crow key, giving us the ability to open previously locked doors both here and back up at the main house, which is where we went next, primarily so we could use our remaining antique pennies to get the assault coin, collect 2 injectors containing unknown and potentially illegal substances, as well as various resources left over as we prepared to interrogate Marguerite. With Marguerite taking the murder of her insects poorly, she sees red and throws us through the floor, but a quick double tap causes her to fall in such a way that if we play this sound effect over the clip, it makes it borderline comical. Now with access to the crow door, we find one of Voldemort's Horcruxes in a box. With a locked door requiring Marguerite's lantern, we head back to the hole in the floor to collect it. With female Slenderman zooming off on all fours with the lantern and the answers we needed, we reluctantly followed Marguerite over to the greenhouse where we would take part in a stressful game of hide and seek. Marguerite's final form was all the evidence I needed to send whoever designed this boss fight straight to prison. With our continued calls to the intimacy coordinator going unanswered, oh my god, what the fuck? Marguerite, for all her scariness and raw sex appeal, again, wasn't difficult to fight even with our movement speed nerf. Dealing enough damage will send her scurrying away to hide, meaning we simply need to walk around the greenhouse hunting her down like we were some kind of granny cheek-clapping Elmer Fudd. Despite seeing things that would be burned into my retinas until the day I died, Marguerite and her bush were put down for good. I forgot to ask her about the catfishing thing. Fuck! Shooting first and asking questions later clearly wasn't a long-term viable strategy when conducting an investigation, but we do get a lifeline when Zoe Baker, Jack and Marguerite's estranged daughter, slides into our rotary dial DMs. She reveals that everyone here is infected, presumably with hepatitis. But hidden in the old house was an ingredient that would allow her to synthesize a cure. In return, she'd give us what we'd been looking for, the identity of the person who had catfished us. That is a deal. Now with the lantern, we open up the second floor of the old house, which clearly needed child services to be called for these appalling living conditions, as well as the dead child concealed in this hallway. The child gives us a hand, which is what Zoe needed for her vaccine, so fighting our way back on the return trip, we rendezvous at the trailer to wait for Zoe. But it turns out that local nail technician and walking advertisement for vitamin D deficiency Lucas Baker had taken Mia hostage. Okay then. As well as Zoe. Right, that's it. If we wanted them back, we'd have to play a series of games designed specifically for people on the spectrum, which, lucky for us, is an area that I would excel in. After grabbing a drink from Zoe's fridge, I felt like I'd rather vape carbon monoxide than have to deal with Lucas and his wannabe Saw games for dickheads. But here we are.
Hello, Ethan. Do you want to smoke some crack?
In order to access the testing area, we needed 2 keycards which were hidden somewhere inside the house. After clearing out the basement, we helped to remove a choking hazard from the deputy police officer's airways, giving us another overly decorative key in the process. With this key, we can now unlock Lucas's bedroom, which was decorated as expected. Before spinning a lampshade so fast, we opened up a wormhole to the attic where we can find the first of the 2 keycards. Across the hall in the master bedroom, we continued to be haunted by old-age pensioners that defied the laws of physics, before completing the daylight savings time minigame and taking the secret passage underneath the bed to feast our eyes on yet another award-winning piece of community art, as well as the second keycard. Spending a few seconds despawning these molded en route up to the testing area, we wondered what horrors awaited us in Lucas's playground. With Lucas's presence continuing to drain my social battery to new lows, we attempt to navigate through an escape room, except it's been designed by Al-Qaeda. With a code required to progress, we work our way deeper into the testing area, committing mold genocide in the barn and collecting an entire backpack's worth of useless shit. We enter the Bloater Olympics, where one neuro round keeps them both stunned whilst we work on forcibly decapitating them, taking the lift up shortly afterwards to locate the door code we needed, and pretending to not have already known it this entire time. Now back at the keypad, with airport security confiscating all of our wares, Lucas traps us inside his playroom, stating that he would let us out if we helped him with a task. Just one little thing that once resolved, he'd happily let us on our way. Oh god, this is disgusting. How is there so much shit? With the party now over, the cake Lucas had made was so good it earned him the Hollywood handshake, but specifically with the hand that was covered in his own shit. With a quick tutorial on how to remove a drywall if you're planning on doing any DIY home renovations this summer, we missed Lucas by seconds, and after closing down what was an egregious amount of adult material on his computer, Jesus Christ, how many tabs? We eventually find that Zoe and Mia were being held up at the boathouse. After taking another of Voldemort's Horcruxes for Zoe to create the vaccine with, we also take Lucas's favourite desk chair hostage. Perhaps if we had some leverage or some way to threaten him, we could... Now, chairless, we crank the bridge to the boathouse up before racing against time to avoid being caught by these 2 molded chasing us from the estate. Now, inside the boathouse and covered in mold, we find Zoe and Mia on the floor above. With the ingredients handed over, vaccine synthesis begun, which I assumed would involve some kind of lab maybe, at the minimum some medical equipment, but we watch on in awe as Zoe just blends a full fetus and arm in a food blender.
That's fucking stupid. I mean, really.
With the vaccine smoothie ready to be slammed back in another conveniently and contrived plotline tactic designed to interrupt the supporting character moments before they revealed a key plotline development. Now facing up to Jack for the 3rd time, every boss fight had me wondering when our inability to run would hit us. But even here, it was more of a mild inconvenience than anything else. With resources and ammo reaching comical levels for Madhouse, our stockpile of neuro rounds stunned Jack long enough for us to walk around the arena with ease, focusing again on Capcom's weirdly unhealthy obsession with giving bioweapons insane amounts of eyes. Seriously, what is up with that? After putting some dirt in Jack's multiple eyes, after one more cycle of damage, we can finally attempt to leave for the dock, but Jack stops us one more time. We had nothing left to defeat him. The only thing I had left was a random silica gel pouch that had come with our shoes. Check out these bad boys. With the pouch thrown into Jack's mouth, all of the moisture in his body was instantaneously sucked out of him, allowing us to finally walk out of the boathouse and meet up with Zoe. Finally able to walk up to the dock, we only had one vaccine between 2, with the game forcing us to make a tragic choice that we'd likely agonize over for hours and hours. Yeah, this is the canon choice. I don't care what anyone says. Zoe had a lot more going for her. She had the information we needed, normal hair, and, also not having tried to kill us 4 fucking times. Leaving Mia at the dock, who gave us an uncomfortably long death stare that penetrated through my very soul, it was quickly forgotten about as we left the Baker estate in search of home. Heading out into the bayou, Zoe still expressed shock that we'd picked her. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't as close of a decision as you think. But you're welcome. But now was the time for serious questions and answers, as we needed to know who the... Wait, why is the Titanic here? It was a question that we were no closer to answering 8 years later, but Zoe, right on cue, has an allergic reaction to the vaccine that she'd just taken. Who knew blending up an entire arm and injecting it had unintended medical side effects? But before we could do anything, the ghost of Leonardo DiCaprio emerges out of the water, looking for the door he was robbed of all those years ago. In a change of scenery and gender that was so jarring it could give you whiplash, we were now playing as Mia. Recently scorned, she was looking for revenge, as well as answers of her own. Walking through the wreckage of the Titanic, it was evident that my storytelling capabilities would be put to the test as we began seeing visions of a 10-year-old girl, a moment that would no doubt have Ethan sweating, thinking that Chris Hansen was going to pull up across the bayou. Arriving in the main corridor of the first floor, we petrol bomb anything that moved before collecting the fuse on this wall to restore power to the doorway and access the emergency stairwell up to the 3rd floor. Sitting down for a movie night with this child who looked like she belonged in The Shining, she offers to fill in the blanks for us via VHS. About 3 years ago, Mia and crackhead Captain Price had been on this very ship, transporting Evelyn, a covert umbrella BOW, to the offices in Northern America under the guise of traveling as a family. When Evelyn escaped and infected the entire boat, it was revealed that Captain Price was actually addicted to crack, leaving Mia to handle the childcare situation all by herself. Whoa, hang on. Tracking Evelyn through the boat, we walk our way through to the 2nd floor, despawning enemies using the doors and safe rooms before finding her jumping into the lift and hiding down in the bottom deck. After murdering more sentient mold and collecting a mysterious purple liquid that presumably is what people used as keys around this place, Evelyn gives us the bait and switch, forcing us back up to the top of the Hello?
So trusted you, I thought I could too. So why in bloody hell?
Fighting our way back to the lift, halfway up the ship's power shuts down, forcing us to crawl out into the 2nd floor and continue our pursuit of Evelyn on foot. Carpet bombing more molded as we walk our way up to the emergency staircase into the 3rd floor, we find Captain Price going through some pretty extreme withdrawal symptoms. The man never really recovered after Modern Warfare 3. It was at this moment that Evelyn arrived, infecting us with her gift, taking control of ours and later the Baker family's minds, and forcing us to operate an illicit online dating bot farm to lure more unsuspecting victims to the house. Was this what had happened to Ethan? No one could be sure, but it certainly seemed to fit in with the script that I'd written. Evelyn had to be stopped. Online dating was a shithole at the best of times, but what she was perpetuating by catfishing susceptible singletons to Louisiana was unacceptable. Rejoining the present day, the plan was for us to locate Ethan and explain what we'd discovered. Currently, he was being held in a prison made out of mold bukkake, and whilst we'd never been closer to the truth, time was quickly running out for Ethan. And for us. In order to reach Ethan, we needed to take the lift down to S2 again, but with us having videotape wall hacks, we know the lift isn't working, so our first task is getting it operational by replacing the fuse and power cord. Throwing another desk chair down the lift shaft because I'm chaotic good, we climbed for what felt like 14 years up to the 4th floor.
But you're so supreme. I give my
Here we collect a wrench to open up the lift's roof hatch, which now gave us access to all floors of the ship. Starting on floor 2, we can avoid the bloaters roaming the halls by tactically despawning them before collecting corrosive smelling salts from the lounge, which helps to open up the rec room down on the 1st floor, where we also gather up the fuse which we'd used in our dream sequence. How this thing is still working is beyond me, but with the captain's key now available from the locked room on floor 2, we can now head back up to the captain's quarters. Oh my god! Where we can unlock his private gun collection to collect the P19, which is like a gun, but worse. One more purple bottle gives us access to the medical wing where we can find the power cord, but the moment we touch the cable, 2 molded spawn in ready to tag team us. But without the ability to run away, these 2 underestimated my willingness to set off petrol bombs at my feet. With the path now clear, we pull the cable out of what was presumably someone's life support machine.
Oh no.
Allowing us to walk our way back to the lift and restore its ability to vertically transport me between levels, specifically down to S2. We don't find much of a challenge down in the basement, everything is just more of the same, especially, since we've already played this once already. The bloater, who was really the only thing that could have given me a problem, can be simply despawned by walking back to this passageway, meaning we had a clean route through to Ethan's mold prison. As Mia began pulling him out, a quick check of the time on his watch showed that we were going to be cutting this close. Now back with Ethan, we wake up to Mia helping us for a change, instead of, making us disabled. She tells us what she discovered, that the person behind all of this was Evelyn, a child living up in the main house. She was the key to solving all of this. Wait, a kid? What do you mean? Have I been talking to a child this whole time? Mia! Mia! Concerned that we may have inadvertently put ourselves into somebody's black book, we had to find Evelyn to clear our name and put an end to all of this. Walking through the adjoining swamp, we recollect our weapons from storage and spend the remainder of our antique coins, unlocking the Magnum, a weapon whose special modifier was being able to instantly make enemies disappear. With Evelyn continuing to leave cryptic messages on the wall, presumably written in her own poo, we blast our way through to the mines, which would take us further and further down into this rabbit hole. I was beginning to find our lack of remaining time disturbing, but with the absolutely egregious amounts of ammo we had and every enemy in this game being Control-C'd and Control-V'd, there was really nothing that posed a challenge to us, walking or not. With a path cleared down into the mines using a health and safety hazard, a conveniently placed lab used to mass-produce Voldemorts provides us with the tools to create a strong sedative, something that would stop Evelyn in a humane way. She was still a child after all. Delving so deep into the salt mines that I was concerned we may wake up a Balrog, we began our ascent up to the surface, fighting through an onslaught of enemies standing between us and Evelyn. Reaching the bloater's one neuro round for the first one stuns him long enough that we can just walk around him before the disability buff on the Magnum was able to issue out migraines on demand. Climbing up the ladder, we walk through one final cave system, arriving at a wooden door that leads us back to the guest house, poetically taking us back to where this all began, and all of the fond memories that we'd made here. Heading upstairs, the LSD that we'd popped en route was taking effect as we started having an out-of-body experience, a vision that proved that Mia was right. She was an innocent victim in all of this, after all, as well as the Bakers, which was an unfortunate revelation.
Ethan. Free my family.
Zoe?
Sure. Coming to terms with the fact that we'd basically eliminated an entire family's generation and that doing drugs at such a critical time was probably a bad idea, we escape from our hallucinations and arrive in the attic, where we find Evelyn waiting for us. Face to face with the architect of this entire mess, we had less than 15 minutes to inject her with the serum and close out the challenge, which, on the surface, seemed like more than enough time.
Get away!
Wait, what? This was an unfamiliar feeling for me. So far, the hardest part of this challenge was the one time I brought sticky keys up by pressing shift out of habit. Oh shit. I obviously knew about the attic fight with Evelyn, but I'd just been under the impression that it would just take a little longer, you know, like a war of attrition, if you will. Well, you can't really have a war of attrition if your opponent is a Sith Lord. Palpatine had fortified the entire attic by turning it into a high-speed wind tunnel. Not only did this nerf our walking speed to the point where we were practically stationary, but to add injury to more injury, Evelyn was performing periodic psychic blasts every 4 to 5 seconds, which sent us flying backwards, making progress in the attic physically impossible. The physics simply weren't in our favour here. According to Newton's law, we had no way to impact our inertia. Speed, according to Newton's law, if you have no way to impact the resistance from what is. Oh, right, sorry. Yeah, in summary, it means we're fucked. After everything Madhouse had thrown at us 20 seconds away from the end of the game, we were going to be forced to run for literally 5 seconds. Wait, no, stop. Come on, guys, we're not just gonna accept this bullshit at face value, right? Come on, like, there's gotta be something we can do here, right? Like a thing we're missing. There's a thing we're missing, and we've just gotta find it. Okay, well, fine. Maybe we're not missing anything here. During my 2-hour-long fisting tutorial, I'd found that there were no alternative routes into that second room. There was no way to counter Evelyn's power, nor any items or weapons in my inventory that had any effect on her. But what I did find was that the wind tunnel effect in the attic was RNG based, in that there were times where the wind resistance was temporarily less potent, meaning you could make more progress in some attempts over others. If it wasn't for Evelyn's psychic pushback attack, we could likely have made more progress just by walking. Hypothetically, let's just start there. Is there a way that we could counter that attack? Well, to answer that, we sacrificed another 59 minutes of our life to discover what I like to call more unintended consequences of some weirdo on the internet playing the game in a way that it was never intended nor designed for. The whole design of this interaction between Evelyn and Ethan follows the principle of Evelyn does push attack, Ethan blocks attack, Ethan is pushed backwards by attack. Simple enough. Well, I thought to myself, what if the dev team's programming of that final point was more literal? As in, what if Ethan was pushed back according to the direction his back was facing and not in the direction of Evelyn's attack? Well, by turning 90 degrees to the left and blocking, we can quickly prove that hypothesis to be true. The animation was clearly never designed to account for different directional variables. Obviously, who the fuck was ever going to do this shit? Which meant that the only outcome available, no matter the direction we faced, was to push Ethan in the direction his back was facing. Now, when blocking at 90 degrees, we're pushed horizontally across the room instead of backwards, meaning the progress lost was negligible. The glaring problem that remained, however, was handling the wind situation. Well, an idea that came into my head was something we'd done before in various challenges. By increasing or lowering our FPS in-game, we can cause different outcomes to occur that wouldn't usually be possible. In Village, for example, we lower our FPS to get less frames. Less frames means less opportunities for collision. Less opportunities for collision means we can squeeze through areas we wouldn't usually be able to do on higher FPS. In our proverbial attic of purgatory at an eye-watering 30 FPS, I hypothesized that now, with 90 frames per second less than before, the wind effect would have less frames to affect us, thus increasing our efficiency at cutting through the wind resistance, which, again, was true. By also moving sideways instead of trying to fight the wind head-on, we were not only able to block easier and more efficiently, but we were making drastically more progress than we ever had before. Now, practically at the entranceway to the second area, we hit another problem. The wind resistance appears to be multiplied once we reach this threshold. Simply holding W doesn't give us the necessary force or progress to overcome the wind resistance before Evelyn's next pushback attack. Despite the progress we'd made, we were effectively back where we started. Luckily, I am what people in the business would call a virgin, so I set about looking for any way we could squeeze any additional walking speed out of Ethan. One potential option was using knife swings. Speedrunners in the Ethan Must Die category, an extreme difficulty DLC minigame where Ethan is repeatedly GBH'd. The runners all appeared to be constantly slashing the knife right at the start of the game. Testing this tactic, the gains were sad, and whilst any boost was welcome, in news that would come as a shock, this did not make a difference. We were just fractions away from breaching the door's threshold, but I was now out of ideas. We'd tried everything. We had no weapons, no coins, no recreational drugs, and no items that would make up that distance we needed here. But whilst we had nothing that could make the difference here, perhaps there was someone else who did. The remote-controlled bomb was an item exclusively found during Mia's campaign on the boat, which when placed on the floor could be detonated remotely by pressing the R key. Detonating the bomb around you gets different outcomes. Placing it on top of you blows you up. Placing it in front of you can stun you temporarily, but when placing a bomb at the perfect distance behind us, when detonated, the resulting explosion propels us forward. Physics, the very thing that was holding us back here, could very well give us the push we needed to get over and into that room. There's just one slight problem though. Ethan can't find any bombs or craft them. Hold on, 2 seconds.
No, no, no!
Yeah, no, 2 seconds. Luckily for us, at the end of Mia's campaign, all of her leftover items transfer to Ethan, including her story-exclusive bombs. Now armed with enough explosives that we could disintegrate the entire attic, we also purchased the defense coin instead of the stabilizer to increase our resistance to Evelyn's damage, as well as crafting as many healing items as legally possible as we return to attic hell, ready to redefine the meaning of torture. The trouble was that to have even the remotest chance of making this work, remotest, there was no less than 6 RNG factors that we needed to align perfectly. First is that we needed optimum wind RNG, then we needed the biggest pause between Evelyn's free attack cycles, then we needed to make sure we placed the bomb in the correct place in line with our estimated distance in the doorway in order to get the correct animation. Too short and we'd blow up, too far away and we'd just stun ourselves. We also had to make sure that we made the maximum amount of progress into the doorway that we could, and that progress aligned perfectly with the bomb's placement. We also had to perfectly time the explosive's detonation to get that correct animation and at the correct time to avoid Evelyn's attack, which would kill us instantly if we didn't. She can also do a double attack if not timed correctly, which again, instant death. And finally, we had to make sure we stopped taking unnecessary screenshots. Seriously, my Steam account is full to the brim of them. And the odds of all of that coming together at the same time, let's just say the odds were high. Like, really high. But you know what? If James Howells refuses to give up trying to get his Bitcoin hard drive out of that landfill in Wales, what right do I have to give up now? You may think this looks promising, but I hate to be the bearer of bad news. We will never make it into that room. By the time we're in the animation to get up, we're already being blown back into the first room, and before you can move in either direction, we'd passed the wall, and we're lost. Forever. But if you think that I hadn't come prepared for this, you must be new around here. Whilst testing this strat, I found that in the recovery animation from the explosion, if you spam A or D for left or right, whichever one you press, your character will get up in that direction. That meant when we blew ourselves over this threshold, over Evelyn's attack, as we spammed D in the recovery animation, we rolled right, lodging ourselves onto the wall and entering the second room for the first time in 4.5 hours. Well, now what? A terrible, terrible time to be mentally stunlocked, and whilst I may have been tempted to release the narrator keyboard here, I'll be honest, I didn't really care, because we'd just proven that the impossible was in fact possible. Creating a visual lineup for the bombs, I was removing as much RNG as I possibly could, and just 19 more attempts at trying, and we were back. But seriously this time, now what? With the wind effect still present, logic clearly dictated that we'd have to repeat the same bomb tech that we'd performed to get into this room in order to reach Evelyn. The wind got stronger the closer you got to Evelyn and seemed particularly impenetrable on both the left and center routes. In these positions, the cutscene initiation line was also so close to her that it pushed the bomb's already stretched capabilities to a mathematically unachievable number. Trust me, I tried. A lot. So that just left me with the right side of the room. Getting across to it requires a pretty death-defying maneuver, but by holding W and D, we strafe across the wind just in time before climbing over these TVs and arriving in the right corner. Now, I know what everyone's probably thinking. I have finally gone insane. The wind was just as strong here, but this was also the longest possible starting distance to Evelyn. So how could this possibly work? Well, there was one anomaly that I found here, found nowhere else in the room, and one that could potentially change this outcome completely. This pipe here seemed pretty normal. Well, it actually does something pretty interesting. When doing some testing, when colliding into the pipe's physics, it's almost like it pushes us, rediverting us into Evelyn and starting the cutscene. So instead of trying to reach Evelyn, in my mind, all I had to do was bomb ourselves into the pipe instead, and it would do the rest for me. A lot of ifs and buts and still the same RNG bullshit as before, but I've been in this godforsaken attic for nearly 9 hours now. This was our last chance. Countless times we died trying to get into the room. Countless times we died trying to reach Evelyn. Countless times we ran out of bombs, and once I even fell out of the second room back into the starting room, which was cool. And we haven't even mentioned that looming over all of this was the slow march of time itself. Even if we did somehow manage to make this, did we even have the time to finish the game in under 4 hours?
Stop! 'Cause I don't want to die. 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 'Cause I don't want to die.
Please! Oh my god! Yes! Oh my fucking god!
Almost in disbelief that after all this time this had actually happened, we injected Evelyn with the sedative, causing the illusion around us to fade. There, it's revealed that Evelyn, the child, was in fact the catatonic grandma from earlier. Oh, thank God, that meant we were off the hook, but in the confusion and excitement, we'd got the syringes mixed up. Whoops. With Evelyn dissolving via chronic dysentery and our FPS no longer under sanction, the creature that looked like it was wearing Evelyn's face was put down for good, and this time, there was no more edging. It was actually finally over. But had we done it in less than 15 minutes? Tinder's not a game, but I am a player, and we'd successfully added Resident Evil 7 to our wall of walking success, overcoming impossible odds to get there. Even Mia had survived, although not for much longer as she appeared to be getting an IV of strong chem fluid. With Diet Coke Chris Redfield greeting us, the case of Louisiana's Tinder swindler was finally closed, for good. Thanks again for the assist back there, anemic Chris. You know how it is, old ladies in wheelchairs be crazy.
No problem. I couldn't leave my little snowman in trouble, could I? Shit. Hush, hush, Ethan. I'm coming.